I'm in my late 20s, and for the past 2 years, I've been married to the woman I once believed I would spend the rest of my life with. She was the person I had envisioned growing old with, the one I thought I could trust beyond a shadow of a doubt. But now, she's about to become my ex-wife. A few weeks ago, I had to leave town for work, which meant she was home alone for the weekend. I didn't think much of it at the time. Why would I? I trusted her. But while I was away, she decided to throw a party and invited some of her friends over. They drank heavily, and from what I've gathered, there were also drugs involved. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. One of her male friends ended up staying the night, and according to her, they slept together. She insists she doesn't remember much, but she recalls just enough to confirm that it happened. The worst part? I didn't even hear it from her. I found out through her best friend, of all people. Apparently, my wife had confessed everything to her the morning after and begged her to keep it a secret. For nearly 3 weeks, her best friend held on to the truth, but the guilt became too much for her. She eventually broke down and told me, saying that it was eating her up inside. The moment those words left her mouth, my world collapsed. I confronted my wife as soon as I found out. She completely fell apart. At first, she tried to lie, trickling out bits and pieces of the truth in a desperate attempt to control the damage. She started with outright denial. "Nothing happened, don't you trust me?" Before shifting to, "I was too drunk to remember." Then came another version, "We just shared a bed, that's all." But I refused to accept the ever-changing story. I kept pushing, and eventually, she admitted everything. She apologized over and over, blaming the alcohol, the drugs, and the situation itself. She insisted that none of it would have happened if she hadn't been intoxicated. But honestly, even if that were true, it wouldn't change a thing. The betrayal, the deception, the blatant disregard for our marriage, I couldn't overlook any of it. Now, I'm in the process of filing for divorce. We're still living under the same roof for the time being, which is its own kind of hell, but I'm pushing through, trying to finalize everything as soon as possible. The way she talks to me now is exhausting. She pleads, apologizes, tries to convince me to stay. It reminds me of every other time she's tried to explain away her mistakes, always dodging true accountability. It's like she expects me to accept her excuses simply because she feels bad. Today, we were discussing the divorce, strictly the logistics, no emotions involved. But out of nowhere, she broke down crying. She looked at me with tear-filled eyes and asked how I could give up on us so easily. How it took so little for me to walk away. For a brief moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. Then she kept talking, and it became painfully clear how she viewed the entire situation. To her, it was just an unfortunate mistake, something I should be able to look past. She acted as if I was being heartless, too rigid, too unforgiving. And that's when it truly hit me. This wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the way she saw herself, her actions, and me. She wasn't truly remorseful for what she did. She was just upset about what it cost her. She wasn't sorry for betraying me. She was sorry that I refused to pretend it never happened. She was sorry that I wouldn't play the role of the forgiving husband who would just let it slide. That realization made everything crystal clear. I don't have to keep explaining why this hurt me. I don't have to keep repeating myself, hoping she'll finally understand. So I told her plain and simple, I'm done. I told her she never valued me or our marriage enough to stay faithful, and because of that, nothing she says now matters. She burst into tears again, but instead of feeling conflicted or questioning my decision, I felt something else. Relief. Like I had finally, truly seen things for what they were. Now, 3 months have passed since that day. The divorce is almost finalized, and I'm doing everything I can to move forward because I refuse to let this experience define me. I've come to terms with the fact that my soon-to-be ex-wife isn't an inherently bad person. She made a catastrophic mistake, but what makes it worse is that she lacks the ability to fully take responsibility for it. Deep down, I don't think she even understands why she did what she did. Instead of facing the consequences, she has thrown herself into some fantasy with the guy she cheated with, convincing herself that there's something real between them. But I know the truth. He's a mess, a man behind on child support, barely keeping his life together, carrying his own baggage. And now, she's entangled in it. She isn't building a new life with him. She's merely orbiting his. She spends most of her time at his place now, but even then, I know she regrets what she did. In rare moments when reality breaks through, she has admitted as much. But rather than confronting her mistakes, she's chasing the illusion of what could be, clinging to the idea that if she just keeps moving forward, the past won't catch up with her. I could sit back and wait for it all to fall apart because I truly believe it will. But I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be the guy standing on the sidelines, waiting for her downfall. I want to move forward. I want to rebuild my life without carrying this betrayal like a weight on my shoulders. Still, I can't help but wonder, why didn't I ever consider giving her a second chance? Maybe because deep down I already knew the answer. If it had been anything else, anything other than betrayal, I would have fought to repair what was broken. But this was something I couldn't overlook. Now, I've put in the effort to improve myself, not for her, but for my own growth. And ironically, she's no longer here to witness it. That stings in a way I didn't expect. But I'm not running after her, and I'm certainly not pleading for her to return. That will never happen. I've told her once and for all, I refuse to let this break me. I won't allow it to define who I am. It's strange how time and distance can shift perspectives. Either she'll come to realize what she let go of, or someone else will recognize the version of me she never truly appreciated. I know I'll be okay. Life moves forward, and so will I, but that doesn't mean it's easy. She was a significant part of my world for so long, and even when I try to push the memories aside, there's still a lingering sense of regret. Not necessarily regret over losing her, but over the possibility that I didn't express my love in the way she needed before everything unraveled. But even with that regret, I know this isn't my fault. She made a choice, and now she has to live with the weight of it. I know she struggles, with anxiety, with self-doubt, with the consequences of her decisions. Deep down, I believe she realizes this isn't the life she truly wanted, but she's stuck in a cycle of her own making, and I can't be the one to break it for her. Time is supposed to heal, and I believe it will, but moving forward isn't something that just happens. It's a decision, an intentional step that has to be taken. And I'm taking it. For a while, I never questioned my girlfriend's friendship with her ex. He lived a few hours away, and their conversations mostly revolved around mutual friends and things happening back home. It never felt like a threat. Then there was a woman I worked with. We'll call her A. She's a good person, and since I started my job, we maintained a friendly, professional relationship. Sure, I once found her attractive, but that was a passing thought, nothing more. The only reason I even had her number was for work-related matters, and we never spent time together outside the office. One day, my girlfriend stopped by while I was on my break and saw me talking with A as we ate. That was all it took. She lost it, her mood soured instantly, and she stayed upset for the rest of the day. I was caught off guard. I asked her why it was acceptable for her to maintain a close relationship with someone she had an intimate past with, yet I wasn't allowed to have a purely platonic, professional connection with a coworker. The conversation went nowhere, unresolved. But the hypocrisy lingered in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply unfair. A lot of people pointed out that she might have been projecting, but at the time, I dismissed it. Just to ease my own mind, I checked their messages. Nothing alarming, just casual conversations about mutual friends. No plans to meet up, no flirtation. The physical distance between them reassured me that I had nothing to worry about. I was wrong. 2 months later, I found out she had been keeping other men in her orbit. She didn't cheat in the traditional sense, there were no physical betrayals, but she was entertaining multiple men behind my back, maintaining connections that went far beyond harmless conversation. And in that moment, everything clicked. We broke up, and honestly, I've never felt more relieved. If I've learned anything from this, it's that projection is a glaring red flag. People who jump to accusations without reason often do so because they're guilty of the very thing they fear you might be doing. Her reaction to me speaking with it told me everything I needed to know. This was never about fairness. It was about control. She was perfectly fine keeping in contact with someone she had a romantic history with, but the moment I so much as spoke to a female coworker, it became a problem. That's not how a healthy relationship works. Trust and mutual respect should be the foundation of any partnership, but in this case, everything was one-sided. Worse, instead of communicating her concerns in an open and honest way, she lashed out in anger, immediately jumping to accusations. If I do ever bring this up again, I'll approach it calmly, framing it as a discussion about boundaries and fairness. But if she refuses to hold herself to the same standard she expects from me, then the problem runs deeper than just jealousy. It's about her fundamental inability to be fair. Looking back, I'm glad I never lowered myself to her level. But I also refused to let my feelings be dismissed or invalidated. If this pattern had continued, it would have been a clear sign that the relationship wasn't worth saving. One comment I read online stuck with me. She's reacting based on her own character. She assumes you'd act on attraction because that's exactly what she would do. That hit hard. It wasn't just an overreaction, it was a revelation. She wasn't just suspicious. She was exposing something about herself. Another person pointed out that she was likely projecting her own behavior onto me. The way she saw my entirely innocent coworker friendship was probably the same way she viewed her own relationship with her ex. And now, knowing everything I do, it all makes sense. I'm just grateful I got out when I did, before things spiraled even further. Live and learn.